President Biden continues his push to sell his scaled-back spending plan to the public. Mr. Biden continued to campaign for it yesterday in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he was born. He continues to pare back his ambitious plans, though, cutting some key funding from the bill. Meanwhile, in Washington, Democrats are compromising on a spending plan that they think will be able to pass. But lawmakers' concerns about the specifics of the bill are growing, and another fight could be brewing as they figure out just how to pay for it all. CBS News White House correspondent Nancy Cordes is here to break it all down for us. Good morning, Nancy. We are seeing a shift coming from Democrats over the last 24 hours or so. How soon could we see a deal on this spending bill?
Well, they are very optimistically, Anne-Marie, saying that they could reach an internal party agreement by the end of the week, perhaps. They're hoping at least by the middle of next week. They'd really like to have something to tout before the president leaves on his foreign trip for the G20 conference, a big climate conference in Scotland, next week. He leaves, I believe, on Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's their new self-imposed deadline. They're sounding a lot more confident. They feel that they are making big progress. They're starting to be more forthcoming about what's going to stay and what's going to go. But I got to tell you, there is a new fight looming, and this could be an all-consuming one. And that is over, you pointed it out, how you're going to pay for all of this, how you're going to whip up $2 trillion or so in revenue. And the reason that that fight is looming is because these holdouts who didn't like the size of the bill, they don't always like the way Democrats want to pay for the bill either, particularly Kyrsten Sinema, who's reportedly unhappy with the idea of raising corporate taxes to pay for these new plans.
Oh, man, because I know that's just like one of the things that you always hear, kind of the last line whenever Democrats are talking about the importance of the spending bill is always, and it's all going to be paid for. Right. You know, without raising taxes, but clearly some taxes will have to go up.
Right.
So obviously, you know, when we talk about paring down, they've talked about maybe playing with a timeline, 5 years versus 10 years, but something's got to give. So what are some of the items that could be cut from the social spending plan?
Right. So there's been this big dilemma from the very beginning. When you've got to cut a big spending bill nearly in half, do you eliminate entire programs, or do you try to cut back on all of the programs in the bill? Perhaps they last a little less time than you had originally hoped, or perhaps they're not as generous. So it appears that they're going to be taking both routes. So, for example, there was about $100 billion in this bill to make community college free for everybody. That now appears to be out. There was also money for housing assistance. That now appears that it will be, at the very least, reduced. There was a provision in the bill for paid family leave, 12 weeks of it, which would have been really revolutionary. That has now been scaled back to 4 weeks. One of the things that appears to be safe right now, because there's so much consensus among Democrats about how important child care is, there's about $450 billion in the bill for child care subsidies for low-income families, and also for universal pre-K, to guarantee that eventually every 3- and 4-year-old in this country would be able to go to a high-quality pre-K program. They're not touching that money for right now. That appears to be safe, but everything else is on the chopping block.
I want to go back to this issue of how is this going to be paid for, and you know, raising tax rates for high-income earners or corporations. You talked about Kyrsten Sinema, you know, not liking that. What are the alternatives for how to get this thing paid for? I mean, I'm wondering if Senator Sinema has floated any ideas, or whether there is another discussion about how this tab is going to be picked up.
If she has floated other ideas, she has not done so publicly, which is one of the great frustrations for Democrats in the House and the Senate. They don't even quite know where she stands. She has not spoken publicly about what she wants. Now, her people insist she is communicating that to the White House behind the scenes, but it's, you know, it's an unusual approach. And this is not sort of some esoteric conversation. Yes, Congress does often pass legislation that doesn't get paid for, that adds to the deficit or the debt. But in this case, because Democrats need to use this process known as reconciliation to pass this bill solely with Democratic votes, one of the provisions of reconciliation needed to use that process is to make sure that it is fully paid for. And so this is a very, very important conversation to have. It is fairly easy to raise that money if you're going to raise the corporate tax rate a little bit and you're going to raise the rate for the highest earners in this country. If Sinema is dug in and she won't accept that, then Democrats are going to have a very difficult time trying to find ways to kind of carve money out here, carve money out there from the very wealthy, from perhaps corporations that have been the most flagrant about not paying any taxes. That gets a lot more complicated, and there's less money there if you try to go that way, and it takes a lot more time than Democrats would like to spend at this point in the negotiations.
Right. Before I let you go, the full House is going to be voting today on whether or not to hold former President Trump advisor Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress for defying a subpoena from the panel investigating the January 6th Capitol riot. Even though the Democrats have the majority in the House, you can't make any assumptions. You know, the conversation that we've just been having is an indication of that. So how does it look in terms of how the House vote will go, and then what happens after that?
Well, it's certainly a very narrow margin because Democrats only have a few seat majority in the House. As of now, we haven't heard about any Democrats who intend to vote no. They universally do appear to think that Steve Bannon is flouting congressional power, not responding to these requests for information and documents and subpoena, and they believe that he should be punished for that and forced to come to the table and work with Congress to explain exactly what he knows about the events leading up to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Republican leaders, there was a question about whether they were just going to sort of let their members vote their conscience, and in that case, most of them would have voted no. They argue that this is a partisan process and it's not fair. But yesterday, Republican leaders actually did start advising Republican members to vote no. So I think, you certainly could see a Liz Cheney of Wyoming go ahead and vote yes. She's on the committee that is not getting these documents and this cooperation from Steve Bannon. I think by and large, Republicans will vote no. And if all Democrats vote yes, then they'll succeed.
All right. Nancy Cordes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.